abduction with a difference. Philip Kinsella.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I really appreciate this wonderful venue that Ben Emlyn-Jones and Neil Geddes Ward has set up. And I feel at home because I'm with people who understand and accept the bizarre. So I'm here tonight to talk about briefly the abduction, or I call it the abduction, that I had in 1989. That was very bizarre and still as fresh in my mind today as it had been all those years ago, and of which had left physical marks on me. I don't know whether or not it's a good thing to say that you're an alien abductee, because most people put you in a bracket and disregard you as a nut. But I've taken the whole process one step further in my investigations into the UFO phenomena seriously. Not about what happened to me, that's happened and done, I will go through it briefly, but more on why it happened. And this opened up an area of research which showed me that we are much more than flesh and blood entities with a sell-by date, that we do have purpose, that we have design, and that there may be an issue of the UFO phenomena that we're still trying to work out. And in order to do that, we have to look outside the box, because most people assume that UFOs are nuts and bolts crafts with most researchers assume that they're just a craft with aliens. They come and abduct people, they do their experiments, and that is that. And more times than not, we keep seeing the same cases coming up over and over again from the past to the present, with no real exploration of what such entities are, where they come from, and why they're doing what they're doing. And I must warn you that the model that I have created or made is just theoretical. It can't be proven. And so going forward, and I know I've been criticized on YouTube, as many people have, that it's just all about advertising and selling books. Well, how else is anyone able to get their message across if they're not able to sell their books or their research? Academics get paid, do they not? They write books, do they not? People buy their works. So why is it that people involved with the paranormal are constantly attacked because they say we're in it for the money? Well, I'd quite happily give them my bank card and show them how much I've got in there, and they might choke. So to cut a long story short, I became interested in UFOs when I had the initial abduction in 1989. What happened was that we lived in a village, Marston Mortain, a beautiful village, and I know TV years ago did a reenactment of it that was in a different house, but the house that we were in was a much larger house, and I had one night found myself floating on my back from the downstairs room, because the room then was big enough for a study and a bedroom. And I found myself being pulled on my back, paralyzed, unable to move in the early hours of the morning, not understanding of what was happening or why I was in this state. Most people would assume that I was having some sort of astral projection or some dream-like experience. But basically, I found myself being pulled out of the house. There were no greys with me. I was just being forcibly removed through walls and doors of the house until I came outside, where I was cartwheeled round, and I could see all these UFOs in the sky, the dark sky, and I was lifted up, and I got the feeling of like a whoosh in my stomach, and I saw this one craft coming closer and closer, and then I blacked out. The next part of the experience was truly horrific, and going back to that point is very painful, both psychologically and physically, because I found myself on a bed, naked and strapped to the bed, and it was very hot. I remember waking up feeling, what am I doing here? What's going on? And embarrassingly, there was an object that was placed into the lower part of the anatomy, but I could feel it in here, as though it was organic or doing something. And my first initial reaction was of complete shock. I started to scream, yell. The room I was in was very hot. It was very like being in a sauna. And when I looked to my right, there were 3 reptilians tall reptilians looking at me and moving backwards and forwards like this. No matter how hard I screamed or yelled, I was just a lab rat. They weren't interested. And I was so tired by screaming and yelling, and there was only one small grey thing, but it was more creamy than grey, that came over and released the mechanisms and ordered me to dress. And I was so grateful to it. And I was taken then to the end of the room, and a slot came up and I was told to get out. And I could see the village from a height, and I started to cry because heights are not my thing, and you're just going to shove me out. And then I was brought down to the ground, and by two greys that appeared, and there was another creature waiting for me on the ground who was standing with his legs apart like this and his arms folded. He was more humanoid than the other entities that I had seen. And but he was very angry with me. He had a scowl on him like this, like really angry. He had knee-length boots. He wore a one-piece uniform. He had this tall, silly hat on his head, and he was standing underneath another craft. And I'm like, well, how dare you do this to me? I mean, what the hell have I done? What does this all mean? I mean, it was screwing up with my mind. But he stood there like that. So I thought, I'm going to ask him a question. How on earth am I able to get through walls and doors? I knew that if he could answer that, I would break the mold and know exactly what these things were. Well, he looked at me shocked, as though my question had knocked him. And his mouth became an O, and he started to talk in an electronic, rasping confusion of words. And I shot back into my body, as though it's like an out-of-body experience, and woke up, and I immediately had a nosebleed to the right side of my nose, which I suffered for a long period afterwards. I couldn't walk very well for some time after that period, and I also had a triangular mark at the back of my right ear that Ronald, my twin, tried to photograph with a Polaroid. Do you remember the old Polaroid cameras that came up with instant picture? It wouldn't develop. Sure, someone said, why didn't you go to the doctors? Yeah, sure, doctor, I've been abducted by aliens and probed. Like, they're going to understand. I had no one to talk to. I felt very isolated. There is a lot more to that story than I've just briefly described. There's a hell of a lot more. And I have got 3 marks here that burn, sometimes burn. And they basically just recently found something in the right ear that is glistening and it's like a crystal. I didn't ask for that to be investigated any further. Is it an implant? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I had a terrible problem with my ear for years. So after that experience, very strange and bizarre experience, moved forward many years later. I went to go and see a medium for the first time in my life in 1998, I think it was, when Princess Diana, my grandmother, died. And she told me, she read for me, and she said to me, she said, you're a twin, and she said, you write books, you haven't been published yet. She said, but your first book will be a psychic book. I said, oh, no, I don't think so. She said, oh, yes, it'll be a psychic book. So after I'd seen her, I went back to see her after 2 years, and something happened to me where some people died, and I started seeing lights around people. And I thought studying UFOs was one thing. Talking to the dead, my reputation would go from here right down the bottom. But I wanted to find out the truth. I wanted to find out whether or not there was any truth in life after death, and I wanted to know if there was any truth in UFO phenomena, even though I'd gone through a very bizarre experience. I wrote this book here, Reaching for the Divine, which explores how the process of discarnate communication is achieved, how the brain is the conduit for consciousness, and how we are able, on some levels, to facilitate information coming through from another dimension. I wrote the book as a no-nonsense book, as almost like a guide to show how it's done, and tried to explain to people that talking to the dead is not a bad thing. But I have been slated by the religious organizations who consider me demonic and also a Satanist, a devil worshipper, because of my interest in the psychic phenomena and also UFOs. So it's all very well for you being labeled with something, but I didn't care. I wanted to dig further and further and further. What are we dealing with? We are more than flesh and blood entities with a sell-by date. We're here for a reason. We have been created by something with intelligence. And I also understood that we survive death, okay? And that we have a soul, and that upon death, the soul returns back to the other side or its creator. And because of that, I started to understand that we may have had more than one life. The process of reincarnation, where we incarnate, reincarnate, that we decide this on the other side. Makes sense. You have one driving lesson in a car, soul getting into a physical body. You're not going to learn a lot from the first lesson, are you? It's going to take quite a few. And some people are in a clapped-out car like I used to have, and some in a BMW. So I kind of understood about the process of reincarnation and soul integration and survival, because being here now in this form, into this life as a human being, to live and die with all memories extinguished, no more you, didn't make sense to me. In fact, I wrestled with this for years and years and years. So I am under the understanding that we survive death. And I know that the religious interpretations are kind of quite detailed in their prognosis. Most believe that when you die, that you sleep until you're woken by the sound of a trumpet, and all the good people go to heaven, and the rest of us are just sent downwards. That's a load of rubbish. There'll be very few people up there, I can tell you, having a party. So I understood the application of discarnate communication, how we are able to infiltrate another dimension using this as the modulator. And it appeared to me that many people who are negative-minded, narrow-minded, narrow their field of consciousness like this, so nothing else can come through. No, I've got to believe in this because the governments tell me and the scientists tell me this is the way I've got to see it. No, can't see outside the box, can't be true because the scientists tell me it's not true. So, an open-minded, not gullible, because there are people who are fakes, there are people who are sensational seekers, there are people who claim all sorts of things. There's all levels of life that can be attributed to. But dealing with the UFO phenomena told me that not only are we eternal, immortal beings and we have a soul, and the soul goes through transgressional periods of modes, goes to different dimensions perhaps. So what were the UFOs? What are the greys? Have you heard of the greys? The small, diminutive, large, wraparound-eyed creatures. I saw one on board that craft, if it was a craft, and I saw one when I came down, standing there waiting to give me a grilling. So I wanted to know what they were. How are they able to abduct a person? What's the process they use? How do they employ this? Well, when I had my experience, which I explained partly in this, it didn't go into graphic detail because the publisher said, no, you can't put that graphic bit in because you don't want people to start thinking outside the box. I can understand where the publisher was coming from, but about the probing and the experience in between. But my experience felt more like a dream or an astral projection. So is it possible, would you suppose, that these entities called the greys, when they come into our field of reality, in the old days, they could abduct people on a physical level because there wasn't as many people and there wasn't as much technology to record it, and they could get away with it. Now they seem to have upped their program in the abduction phenomena. So I believe that these greys abduct a person by taking the soul from their body, which is you, like pulling it away, and bringing you into their field of vibration. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's go back to life after death. People who have had near-death experiences, you've heard of those, I'm sure, NDEs. When they have died, physically died, they felt, themselves going down a tunnel more times than not towards the light. They can communicate with their loved ones via telepathy. Everything is real to them, totally real. And when they return back, it affects them. The abduction phenomena works closely on this idea, but is more negative, where the person is taken up to a ship, the beings communicate through mental communication, There is also this sense of timelessness, because when a near-death experiencer is going through their episode of dying and going to, they have no sense of time. The same with an abductee. They have no sense of time, or they lose time. Now, we also know that astronauts who have gone into space have actually stated they seem different when they're on the outer surface of the stratosphere. They seem different. And I know that their DNA can become sometimes a little bit different as well when they return back to Earth. So looking at the near-death experience and the abduction phenomena, I was shocked at the parallels between both of them. So what did that mean the Greys were? We've been led to believe in the media machine that the Greys are basically, spacemen. But on closer inspection of the Greys, obviously we see a lot of these triangular crafts and saucer-shaped objects. I'm sure you're all aware of the Belgium sightings in the 90s, where a lot of these crafts were seen that could change their shape, in an instant. But the Greys themselves, all these pictures are Ronald's, my brother's, he's the artist and an author himself, he'll be coming up to do a talk. The Greys themselves were of interest to me, because I'm thinking, well, they appear to be sexless, they can't reproduce. When the abducted person, the abductee, has a sense of no time, missing time and lost memories, they have no empathy, they have no emotion. They do not understand the very attributes that make us human. Colour, taste, smell, love. They are devoid of these emotions or these things that make us what we are. So it appeared to me they were looking for something through us. Now, because they cannot reproduce, or so we assume they cannot reproduce, what does that then make them? Are they clones? And I kind of got thinking about clones. So let me give you an example. If I was to clone you in a laboratory, okay, and I created 1,000 clones of you, 1,000. You yourself are a natural process of reproduction. You have come through from the other side. You've incarnated into this form through your mother. I hope so, and hope you're not an alien. And when you've accumulated all your experiences and memories and you pass back, you'll be slingshot back to the other side, yeah? So your soul, you are a natural process of, spiritual evolution. You have memories that you'll remember when you pass over, as well as the ones you have here. Your clones, however, your physical clones, will only have the memory of one life. They will have no past, they will have no future. So the clones, when they grow up, will only have the recording of one single life. When the physical copy dies, whereas your soul would go back to the Creator, the clone souls, I theoretically assume, will not be able to gain entry back to the other side because they have no past and have no future. They are literally stuck. Are you with me? So, with regards to the Greys, is it possible that their species had cloned themselves? And that once their clones had died, the souls of those clones, they would still have a spark of consciousness, have amalgamated themselves into one hive mind consciousness. They are outside creation itself. They cannot gain access to where the original copies went. And if these cloned souls have gravitated as a one hive mind consciousness, they have found us. And why have they found us? Because we can reproduce. They're very much interested in reproduction, human reproduction. And we hear these stories of hybridization projects, which I don't doubt. But why are they interested in reproduction? You have the greys that can't reproduce themselves. They bring a human female and male, you know, and they do all these things on them. Not that I was much used to them, I'm afraid. And they're creating these hybrids, these strange creatures. Is it possible that they're trying to infuse their souls into these hybrids to make them part of creation? It is just a theory, you understand? It's just a theory. Your clones, this is theoretically speaking, your clones is like Blade Runner. They'd want to know, do they go to where you go to? Is there a life after death for them? Is there a continuation? Now, most people may reject this hypothesis because they simply have been sold by the media machine, the Hollywood idealism that we're dealing with space aliens from another planet who's coming down here to do whatever. That may be possible. I'm not talking about this is happening with all the greys. With all our humans, we have different sections of humans to have with their own agendas. But on the larger scale, the greys are able to bring the soul of a person into their filled frequency of vibration, and whatever they do to the soul of the person, which is real, will affect the physical counterpart, the same as with healers. When they heal someone, they don't need to physically touch the person. Their energy can affect the molecular level of the body just by thought. So we've got to get away from this idea of everything's nuts and bolts and physical when we pass over to the other side. For us, it will be a very physical experience. I have seen the other side. I nearly crossed over when I was younger. And to me, the experience was very, very real. The reptilians, I know that we have this theory on the reptilians, with them being in charge of the clones. You know, and I'm not suggesting that this is fact with my theory. We have to look outside the box, but it has something to do with the soul. It has something to do with us being unique in the sense that we can love, that we can, create, that we can be happy and sad, that we can do all these things that make us what we are. The greys do not seem to be a part of our connection at all. They seem fascinated by these attributes that we have, and it feels very much like they want them. They want to create something perhaps to be part of what we are, that we represent. There is also the theory that we belong to the greys, because most of the time, most people have told people who have been regressed, they're psychiatrists or whoever, that we belong to the greys, that we are containers for the greys. I mean, what does that mean? What are they talking about? And why, if, as is postulated by many, that, we've got it all wrong, that the aliens are good, that they're here for the benefit of mankind, and my brother and I have both, argued this professionally. Where is their help? Why haven't we got the cure for cancer? They could disarm all of the nuclear missiles that we have. Why hasn't that happened? And yet we're being told now by other factions of the UFO community that basically these beings are very much good beings. Well, I don't see much of that happening. And if someone's covering something, then it means that, it's something very wrong. Don't you agree? Yes? If there's silence and denial, and that Hollywood have tried to lead us down this path of good versus bad. And we also have this feeling as well that we're dealing with demons, demonic entities. There is also the hypothesis that these creatures could be things from the past, going back into the biblical times, into our ancient times, basically that have risen, and this war, this silent war, is still continuing to this day. Could it also be possible that the demons of the past are trying to gain access into our world? I know there's been a lot of talk of some kind of faked UFO invasion, and that 9/11 was just the beginning to basically see how the public would react, to see how they could pull it off. Also dealing with the satanic versions behind that, because I believe very much that with the events of 9/11, they were orchestrated. It was an inside job. We're entitled to our own opinion. And that is my theory on that, like everyone else's, many other people. They wanted to see how far they could go. with regards to that. So it's very possible that there could also be a faked UFO invasion to make us believe that we are going to be saved by the Americans or whoever, and they'll save the day, and then we walk right into the hands of what Ben Emlyn-Jones spoke about earlier, the Illuminati, who will be there to make it all well for us, to make it look like everything's fine, we've dealt with them, we've got rid of them, when really, in actual fact, they haven't. So going back towards the psychic research and the UFO field was very multi-complexed, but I tried to put this theoretical model together of what we represent on a spiritual level and making sense of what we are. And I could never understand why most people accepted that they lived and then they just died and there was no more. The thought literally horrified me, even when I was younger. I thought, what's the point in life? What does it mean for all of us if we share our hopes and our dreams, our desires, our aspirations, and then it's all gone? No, no, no. So I kind of like looked further into that field of soul survival, and I was rewarded with the evidence that I had and was getting from other sensitives. And interestingly, it appears that people who are interested in UFOs, as we call them, something happens around their biosphere. They become more open or more aware. So kind of like a beacon of light, you seem to draw the energies towards you. And you know why? Because those energies are attracted to the energies that you're sending out, your wavelengths, your wave patterns. Because most people are like down here, being programmed by the system, the society, the system I call it. And do your job, pay your taxes, don't ask any questions, keep your nose to the ground, be a good citizen and get bugger all. Yeah? And die. And yet other people who are elevating their consciousness to a level of saying, hang on a minute, something's wrong here, there's something not right. You find your truths, you find your areas that's unique to you. But because the energy's changed around the brain or the workings of the brain consciousness, the system hasn't got a hold of you as it has with the other people, and so you're different. And that's why more people generate or connect with these other energies, or rather they connect with you. So it's all to do with energy. It's all to do with consciousness. It's all to do with the soul. And have you also noticed that when there's nothing really good that comes along that enlightens us, it's always doom and gloom all the time. And of course, the system, as I call it, wants this. It feeds off negativity. It feeds off of it. So does that make the Greys bad? Well, obviously they are covering their whole modus operandi. They want it covered because they don't want us to know about it. But we're now waking up. And there is also the speculation of whether or not the military are working hand in claw with them. I don't doubt that. I'm sure that the military-industrial complexes themselves have back-engineered craft, not all of them, but back-engineered some of them, and use them. I do not subscribe to the fact that the military have created the Greys and the machinery to go and abduct anyone and then make it look like they're doing this to make it look like it's aliens when really it's the military. What point would there be in that? Yeah, there would be no point whatsoever. Again, my brother and I, we argue and we question all this type of thing, which is very interesting to us and where we're going with our research. So I believe that the abduction phenomena is a real event, although it happens on a different frequency of awareness. I also believe that the Greys are abducting people because they're interested in what makes us tick. They're also interested in reproduction. And this is the thing. I know I met Dr. David Jacobs in Arizona, and his theory is that the aliens want to repopulate the planet with them and move us off. Well, I'm not disputing that theory, but I believe there had to be something a little bit deeper. I believe that it has everything to do with the Greys not being able to be part of creation. I mean, look at them. They don't understand all the qualities that make us what we are. And this is where my research has been leading me more and more into the fact of creationalism, reincarnation, soul survival, and UFOs. You know, time and time again, the system will tell you they don't exist. They're not there. We're all hallucinating. You know, that is so annoying because most people believe, oh no, don't believe them. They're conspiracy theorists, the new psychological weapon, making you look like, oh, it's all right, he's a conspiracy theorist, you know? But most people understand that we are being lied to. And going back to the abduction phenomena, is it good or bad? I couldn't tell you. All I can tell you is the experience I had was anything but good. In fact, it bordered along the lines of rape. And although most people can laugh and joke about it and say, oh, ha, ha, you know, he was probed, I would never want for them to have been in that situation, which to me was very, very distressing, and even to this day still affects me. So you can understand why I took it upon myself to try and find out what it was that happened, why it happened, why they did this to me, what are they and where do they come from? But of course, the more you go into this, the more you'll find that you'll be a huge barrage of negativity and criticism. He's lying, he's a fraud, he's a fake, he's made it all up just to make some money. Really? You would want to believe that I would want to come forward with a story as ridiculous as that to discredit my whatever good character I have or personality I have? Yeah, right, okay, sure. But what they don't understand, the people, is that I wanted to find the truth of why these things were happening. And I still will tell you it's to do with the soul, it's to do with our eternal soul, the connection between the Godhead, memories, experiences, things that make us what we are. And these greys want part of it. They want it. And it's almost as if they've been denied it by something. And hence, you know, with the demons, you know, are they somehow involved? That this is a modern war? Dr. Jacques Vallée, I also had the esteemed honour of meeting him. You know, his theory is that these creatures have moulded themselves into our mythology, from, you know, goblins and, you know, and then we go into the space rockets, and then the flying saucers, and then the triangles, and you know, now they seem to be one step ahead of our psychology. They seem to play and toy with us. It's almost they enjoy doing it. So it could be something that borders along the lines of an ancient war that's still occurring to this day, because there are markings of greys on cave paintings and you know, a lot of the creation of statues within the past. And I always like what Michael Jackson said. He said that history is wrong, and I believe him. He said history is wrong, that we've all been duped and lied to. The other thing I want to explain about as well too, just checking the time here to make sure I've got enough time. How much longer is it?
You've got 25 minutes.
Okay, the other thing I want to say here is that I'm not saying that this is, my theory applies to all of the abductions. As I said, there are many of us on this planet, 7.5 billion people on this planet. Most people have their own ideas, own agendas. Most people are warring people, most people are peaceful people. Why should it be any different for the greys? You know, for them. There may be different factions of greys that have their own agendas. So I'm not disputing that. But at the same token, they seem to be interested in the very qualities of what makes us tick. They don't understand about time. They don't understand about taste. They don't understand about love. And when they create their hybrids, they need the abductee, most notably the female, to bond with the hybrid. They want the human to bond with it, to show it emotion, to show it affection, to show that, you know, it's loved and cared for. Strange, isn't it, that the beings themselves can't do that? It's almost as if they're trying to replicate this in order to learn for maybe the ingested soul, their soul, the clone soul, going into this physical hybrid to try and get itself back into the wheel of reincarnation, incarnation. As I said, it is just a theory. and we can't prove it. But at the same token, we have to look outside the box with regards to what's going on. The other thing as well is that I want to talk about here. Yes, I thought I wanted to put this on. Somewhere right now there's a hater looking at your post like this. And I think it's important to address the fact that whatever talks any of us do, whatever research you do, whatever ideas you have, you are attacked, viciously attacked by the trolls. And I know that, Ben, you mentioned this. And it's almost as if we're not allowed to mention this without being attacked even more. But I have become stronger within myself, and I don't care. You know, I've been attacked by a lot of people, most notably religious people, who believe themselves to be holier than thou. You know, well, I ask those people to look in the mirror at themselves, you know, before they start attacking people like ourselves who are after only the truth. And it's amazing how, isn't it, that the trolls, when they're discussing someone, they discuss it as if they know you personally. They're talking about you as if they know, oh, yes, that's what he is. Did you know what made me laugh the most? I couldn't believe it. I'm actually a disinformer for the Illuminati. I was very flattered. You know, but... And, oh no, you shouldn't be doing this. You're talking to the dead. It's severely forbidden. Again, the Bible is one of the biggest selling books on this planet. Do they not have to go out and buy it? And again, the very people who are holier than thou, who condemn what we're doing, I will say to them, I am anything but a Satanist, and I'm anything but, you know, a devil worshipper. I love God. And I believe in a supreme force, a supreme energy that created us. And I believe that the Creator created us for us to create. And maybe this force of energy, of intelligence, is learning more about itself through us, the extension of us, as we are hopefully through it. So the Creator creates for us to create even more. And this huge consciousness of ever-expanding love and compassion is working through every single one of us, you know? And what gives those people this whole thing about, well, he's talking to demons? Excuse me, in the Bible, doesn't it make references to talking animals? To angels, where they converse with angels? Why is that considered, you know, right and true for something that was happened over 2,000 years ago, and yet today can't happen again? No. I will not be a part of those people and their religious ideologies. They scare me, they frighten me, because what they're doing is they're containing human consciousness, they're stagnating our growth, they're living in the dark ages, and God would have created us with love. You have a computer with an extended memory. Are you telling me that you're not allowed to use that extended memory? Are you telling me that we're not allowed to think outside the box? This is where the answers will lay. And I believe that we're going to open up a new science, not a religion, a new science, into the exploration of other dimensions, other realities that do coexist around us, and that we as the physical modulators within this realm are starting to understand that we can open up to these other energies. So, you know, although it may feel like we're prisoners on planet Earth, I can assure you that there is life after death. The soul transcends this realm, and that UFOs are a reality, and that they're obviously very interested in us as a species, of what makes us tick, of what makes us work. And, you know, they probably got their own agenda, and it's all to do with creationalism, you know? So always believe in yourself and believe in what you do. As long as that belief doesn't harm, control, and destroy people, I believe that all of us are connected, yeah? What really annoys me, and it continues today, and I still can't get my head around it, is the fact that because you're dealing with subject matters like UFOs or psychic exploration, it does me no favours in the long run. But I'm glad to say I'm not gullible. And you know, my research is continuing. It's hefty work. It's a lot of work and a lot of things that we have to tie together. But I believe that this is part of the problem that we have with regards to the abduction phenomena and why it is we're having a hard time understanding it. But thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Any questions?
We've got a quarter hour of questions.
Yes.
The triangle marks you said you had on your shoulder or neck, wherever it was.
The back of the right ear and the arm here.
Were they actually dots or were they linked? So it's a complete triangle?
It's a complete triangle. Yeah, there's a complete triangle. Yeah.
Do you find your psychic awareness has opened up since then? Has it opened up?
That is a very interesting point, because I remembered I was always questioning where I came from when I was born, when I was younger. So I guess it's always been there, because death frightened me. And someone will say, oh, it's because you're obsessed with death, this is what you're experiencing. No, I believe that perhaps the trauma of the incident in 1989 opened something in me, because I started to question things. I used to suffer severe nosebleeds on the right side that would just start for no apparent reason for years. They were going to cauterize it, but then it stopped. It doesn't make me unique in any way or special. We're all unique, we're all special, we're all individual. But all I can tell you is that there's a burningness in my soul. And even if I'm wrong, I will be happy to carry on with other people's research. But there is a drive within me to find the truth, whatever truth that may open up to be. It may be very bizarre and something some of us can't accept. But over time, like many things, because we've been programmed by the state to believe in what we're to believe in, you know, you're taught by the mainstream school, the society, that this is what is. And when something else comes along that knocks that, it takes a long time for you to accept it. Because with UFOs, I used to love them at night, and then when I woke up in the morning, I used to think, oh my God, this is all ridiculous. And then slowly, gradually, through the acceptance, it's now become a norm to me. So it is something that I feel is pulling you as an individual forward to your beliefs, to your truths. And we're all individual, that's the thing, you know, we've got our own paths. We connect with things differently, perhaps uniquely, because of your soul signature. Those energies that you're looking for will come in the shape and form that you will best understand them as. So, yeah, definitely, yeah. Yes.
When you had the abduction experience, were you already interested in UFOs and things like that? Or did it come out of the blue?
Well, it did come out of the blue. I did have an interest in UFOs because I'd seen a UFOs. Ronnie will go into that more. But I did see something going way back in my life. We've always had paranormal activity surround us, I'm embarrassed to say, but our family can prove that. So it doesn't make us unique or special in any way, because we all are. But no, that experience came out of the blue, totally out of the blue, and yeah.
Well done to you, Philip, for mentioning two words which are very seldom used in UFO research or anything like that. And those two words are God and love. They're very hardly ever mentioned at all. It's all really done on the negative side, and it isn't brought forward at all. And it is. We are loved by God.
Yes.
And God is the creator. But did he not also create the ETs as we know them?
Exactly.
You see, so we're all under his umbrella, but we've just got the negative factions that want more power, and they want to take our power. They see what we've got. We've got these lovely things called emotions, and they say, right, we're going to have some of that. Let's just do a willy-wally deal with whoever's in charge of this planet and say, we'll give you all this technology if we are allowed just to have a few humans just to study. But
yes.
This few humans is not a few humans, it's thousands of us.
Yes.
But just once again, thank you for mentioning God and love.
And there is the power elite who are crushing us, yes. Who are controlling us, exactly. Who are subjugating our freedom, our right to think. And we had this discussion earlier. And, you know, what is beggars belief this is the real, I can't get my head round this. UFOs are being recorded every single day, and we are constantly told denial. It's fabrication, illusion, fantasy. People, wake up in the world. Have a look and see what's happening.
Smell the coffee.
But we will win. And I love the idea from Ben Emlyn-Jones when he said about Blake 7, I all see us down in a basement somewhere with our underground movements, and we get found by the Federation. So I think in the future that's the way it's going to go, if we're not careful, where people like ourselves will be trying to pull together and believe in what you believe in, and the system's lying to us big time. Yeah, hello.
It's funny you should say that. You know, they are around all the time.
Yes.
I woke up 6 o'clock last Sunday morning for the bank holiday, and I thought, oh my God, I went to feed the birds, and I had about 10 hours sleep, really deep sleep, which I haven't had for ages. And the sun looked really wobbly and globby, and I thought, oh my God, there's something behind it. You know, it was like there was another ring, as if there was something behind it. This delivery thing went through my head, and I just felt compelled to fly down to Devon and Cornwall, so I jumped in my car, and I went down to Devon, and I went into this little pub that Ben and I had been to in Belstone, in North Devon, and I managed to get a room. I wasn't going to stay down, and then I thought I'd go to Cornwall, so I went to Tintagel, went for all this frog, blah, 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 blah. And then I came back, and I used to live there for about 10 months and had many experiences. And I just wondered if you had these experiences, but I was going up and down the roads where we had the experiences, Ben and I, when we went down there. And then I started to freak out because it was so black, like I forget how black it is out there, you know, the sky, and how low down the stars seemed. And I felt like some of these, I know they're not stars, and I felt like I was being watched, these big heavy white lights, you know, that were quite low down. So I got the heebie-jeebies and decided to turn around after ripping up and down this road about 11 o'clock at night, and I went straight back to the pub where it was emptied and now there was a couple of people. And we just talked about it. I went upstairs, went to sleep, 20 to 1. I don't know if you get noises, I don't know how many experiences you've had, but I got this, I woke up 20 times to this like high-pitched peep, like a smoke alarm peep. So it went, and then there was like a whirling sound and a bang, and I thought someone's at my door. And I woke up, and there was no one. I could see through the cracks. There's no one there. So I looked out the window, and I said, "Well, I know these because I have lots of experiences in Devon. Like a ground light on the floor, a ground light in one of the cottage gardens. There's 3 rows of gardens, and it was like pulsating. It's very tiny." So I shot my torch on it out the window, and of course you don't see anything then. Turn the torch off, there it goes again. And then I saw it. This massive multicoloured sphere was in the 3rd garden. I kid you not, it must have been about 35 to 50 feet diameter, but I only saw half of it to get an idea. And it was on the village green right next to this other guest house. And it was pulsating, and the colours. Well, I'd seen one of these spheres up in the sky before, but never seen it on the ground, where it's actually on the ground. And it was pulsating, and the whole of that area, which was the little village green, was like daylight. Now, I cannot believe that no one in that B&B did not see that light. It must have been really coming through the window. What I'm asking you is to me, these are interdimensional, these ones.
Yes.
These are like nut and bolt things. And I've seen this one before. Have you seen those?
We're talking about a technology that the military are very interested in, where technology can manifest through mind. That sounds incredible, but it's like ice turning into water. We've got to understand that these entities or interdimensional are able to transverse our space-time and come into our physical reality and maintaining the structural appearance that holds it here. So when they go back, they may be very different. So they have to manifest themselves into the way that we work on Earth. You know, so they mold themselves, and I believe that they're able to do that through a technology of the mind. So they're able to manifest their reality through thought. Yeah, it's the same as we do it on a very slower level here on the Earth. When you think of something and then you have to create it, physically create it, it takes time. But over with them, it seems much quicker. But yes, very interesting. Thank you.
The next morning, I took pictures. 7 o'clock, I was up, and they were all cocky with it state night. I was frozen to the bed. I pretended to read a magazine as if I wasn't interested in them, and I knew they were out there all night long. So when I went out there 7 in the morning, I took pictures, random pictures, and in the daylight, right while they were checking ponies and walking around, I looked and I thought, what are those in the picture? And it looked like they were still there. I could see these strange-looking creatures. So it's weirdy looking stuff.
Yes, very strange.
Some looked in Waunakee, and then others looked. There was such a mishmash of weirdness.
Well, I think it's down to you for your interpretation. Remember, it's a personal experience with you as the individual. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right for everyone else. It's personal to you because you're decoding it the way that you believe it. You see what I mean?
I think the ones are bad ones.
That's what we're still looking for.
I could go out the door because there's 3 lots to go through to wake everyone up, you know, in a pub on the first floor.
Yeah.
But even so, I was still petrified, and each time I run away, you know, but you still don't know if the goodies or baddies, do you?
Well, I certainly know the ones I had weren't good. Yeah, someone had a question.
Yeah, what do you say to the sceptics who say that what you've experienced is sleep paralysis?
Oh, my God.
And sleep paralysis is something to stop us falling out of trees, which we involved millennia ago.
Do you know what?
Yeah, I'm not saying I believe
No,
that.
do you know what? I'll just tell you. To be honest with you, I'm fed up with any of that because I've explored those areas. And until you yourself have gone through that experience, you know, I get into my car, I turn the engine on, that's real to me, okay? You see, if you were to say that to someone, say, oh, I don't believe you. Well, I just got in my car. No, I don't believe it because they haven't had the experience. They can't relate to it. The same with someone that's in a plane crash or they survive a plane crash. They try to explain to someone the experience. They're like, oh, yes, I think so. They don't know.
No,
So,
I mean, we've all had the experience that you think you're awake, but you're not. They call it hypnagogic.
I had physical marks, yeah, I had physical marks afterwards, so, yeah.
So there can be false awakes. False awakes.
I can add something to that, actually. I actually suffer from sleep paralysis myself. I get it every month or so on average. It's totally different from the abduction experience. And Dave Hodrian of the Birmingham UFO group has done an excellent presentation. He did it at the first UFO Truth Magazine conference, and you can watch it on YouTube. And he explains the distinct objective difference between the two experiences.
As I said, very real experience, more real than here. Even so, since 1989, it's still fresh in my mind. I can't even remember some of the things I did last week. Thank you very much. And I've got the book, my books there. I've got them there, Passage for Eternity, forward by Malcolm Robinson, £10 for a copy if you want one. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all right. Thank you.
Philip Kinsella, a very brave man. He's spoken about his personal issues, things that a lot of us would be embarrassed about, and he's gone into his own deep feelings and his own unique new ideas, and that's very, very good. Well done, Philip.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm taking my microphone off. Thank you, Ben. Thank you.